January 330 BCE, the Zagros Mountains. 3 months earlier, Alexander had destroyed the main Persian army at Gaugamela. Darius III had fled east. Babylon had opened its gates. Susa had surrendered. The treasuries of the empire were falling into Macedonian hands. For the first time since Alexander crossed into Asia, the heart of Persia seemed exposed. No great field army stood between him and Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid kings. If Alexander reached it, the conquest would become a claim over the center of Persian power. But between Susa and Persepolis stood the Zagros Mountains, cold, narrow, dangerous, and inside one of those passes, a Persian commander was waiting. His name was Ariobarzanes, satrap of Persis. He understood something Darius had failed to use at Gaugamela. Alexander was almost unbeatable on open ground, but in a mounting pass, the phalanx could not spread, the cavalry could not charge, and numbers mattered less than position. Alexander entered the route with roughly 17,000 to 20,000 men, a fast column, strong enough to break resistance. But as the Macedonians pushed deeper into the pass, the road tightened. Cliffs rose on both sides. The path twisted between stone walls. Then the way ahead was blocked. A barricade of earth and stone sealed the road. And from the heights above, the attack began. Boulders crashed into the column. Arrows and missiles fell from both slopes. Men raised shields, but the danger came from above. Units pressed forward without understanding what had happened at the front. The phalanx could not form. The cavalry had nowhere to move. Orders disappeared in the noise and panic. For the first time in his Asian campaign, Alexander was forced to withdraw under pressure. He left dead men behind in the pass. The road to Persepolis was closed. The conqueror, who had broken Persia in open battle, had been stopped by mountains, stone, and one satrap who had chosen the ground perfectly. So how does Alexander recover? How does he finish the conquest when the only road forward has become a killing ground? To understand the Persian Gate, we need to return to the aftermath of Gaugamela.
Darius had escaped. That mattered. As long as Darius lived, he remained the legitimate great king for many Persians. Alexander could seize cities and treasure, but politically the empire was not finished while Darius was still beyond his reach. Still, Alexander's advance was extraordinary. Babylon surrendered. His exhausted army rested there, reinforcements arrived from the west, and Alexander began making administrative appointments. He was beginning to act like ruler of the empire. Then came Susa, another royal city, another surrender, another treasury. The wealth captured there gave him freedom to pay soldiers, reward loyalty, and fund the next stage of the war. But Alexander did not stay in Susa for the winter. That would have been safe. He chose movement, because Persepolis still waited. To reach it, he divided his army. Parmenion took the baggage in slower troops along a safer road. Alexander took a faster route through the mountains with a picked column. It was a familiar pattern: speed over comfort, risk over delay. On the way, he encountered the Euxines, a mountain people who had long demanded payment from passing armies. Alexander refused, defeated them, and continued.
After that, the road seemed open. No major enemy appeared. The worst seemed to be behind them. That was the danger. Because the Persian Gate did not look like a trap at first. The approach was broad enough to encourage movement. There was no giant army at the entrance, just a road, cliffs, and silence. But deeper inside, the pass narrowed. At the critical point, an army could not spread out. It could only move forward or backward. Ariobarzanes had prepared that point carefully. He placed defenders on the heights. He blocked the road ahead. He waited until enough Macedonians had entered the defile. Then he struck. The first shock was confusion. The enemy was above them. Stones rolled into packed ranks. Missiles fell at steep angles. The front was stopped by the barricade. The rear was still pushing into the pass. Every step made the crowding worse. Alexander had walked into a battle where courage could not solve the problem. His men could not form properly. His best troops were reduced to targets in a narrow road.
The losses hurt. The humiliation hurt more. The Macedonians could not recover all of their dead, a deep dishonor for both Greek and Macedonian soldiers. Ariobarzanes had not destroyed Alexander, but he had done something almost no one else had achieved. He had stopped him. Time now worked against the Macedonians. Winter made the mountains harder. Supplies were stretched. Darius was still alive in the east. Every delay gave Persia hope. Ariobarzanes did not need to chase Alexander. He only had to hold the pass. Behind him lay Persepolis. Alexander could not solve this by attacking harder. A second frontal assault would mean entering the same road, under the same cliffs, against the same defenders. The phalanx could beat armies on open ground, but this was not open ground. So, Alexander looked for another route.
The ancient accounts differ on how he found it. What matters is that Alexander learned of a difficult path around the Persian position. It was steep, indirect, dangerous, and made worse with winter. If the Persians discovered the movement too soon, Alexander could lose his best men in the mountains. But doing nothing was worse. So he divided his force again. A detachment remained near the camp to keep Persian attention fixed on the front of the pass. Fires were kept burning to suggest the army was still there in strength. Alexander led the main striking force through the difficult mountain path, aiming to appear behind Ariobarzanes. The march was brutal. Cold air, unstable ground, steep climbs through rough country. If they were seen too early, the maneuver could fail. But the Macedonians kept moving. After difficult progress through the mountains, Alexander reached the rear of the Persian position. The trap had been reversed. At dawn, the attack began.
The troops facing the pass advanced from the front, drawing Persian attention toward the road they had already defended once. But this time, Alexander was not trying to force the same battle. He was closing around them. Pressure came from the high ground, then from behind. Persian defenders who had dominated the pass from above now found enemies descending into their rear. The same terrain that had protected them now made escape difficult. The fighting became desperate. The Persians did not collapse at the first shock. They resisted hard because they knew what the pass meant. If it fell, Persepolis was exposed. But once Alexander reached their rear, the defense could no longer hold. The Macedonians forced their way through. Ariobarzanes tried to break out. The sources disagree on his exact end. Some traditions say he died fighting. Others say he escaped briefly and was killed near Persepolis after being denied entry. But whatever the exact version, his resistance ended there. The Persian Gate was open.
Alexander advanced toward Persepolis. The city had little chance to resist. Its governor, Tiridates, opened negotiations and surrendered the treasury. The wealth captured was enormous. Even if ancient figures are debated, Persepolis held one of the greatest royal treasuries in the ancient world. For Alexander, this was more than money. It was the material power of the Achaemenid kings. Now it belonged to him. But Persepolis was not treated like Babylon. Months later, the palace complex was burned. The burning of Persepolis remains one of the most debated acts of Alexander's life. Some ancient writers present it as revenge for Xerxes' burning Greek temples during the Persian Wars. Others connect it to a drunken celebration. Others see political calculation, a message that the old Achaemenid order had ended. Whatever the exact motive, the result was unmistakable. The ceremonial center of Persian kingship burned. Yet even this did not end the war. Darius fled farther east. Alexander pursued him into Media and beyond. But before Alexander could capture him, Darius was murdered by men from his own side, including Bessus, who then claimed royal authority for himself.
The war changed shape again. It became a struggle to secure the eastern satrapies, crush revolts, and prove that the empire now belonged to Alexander. That is why the Persian Gate matters. It showed the weakness hidden inside Alexander's strength. In open battle, he was almost impossible to defeat. But in mountains, against an enemy who refused to fight on his terms, even Alexander could be stopped. For a moment, Ariobarzanes achieved what Darius had failed to do. He halted the Macedonian advance and closed the road to Persepolis. But Alexander's answer revealed why his campaign kept moving. If the road was blocked, he found another road. If the heights controlled the pass, he took the heights. If the enemy used the mountains as a shield, he turned those mountains into a weapon.
In January 330 BCE, the Persian Gate became the last great barrier before Persepolis. It was Persia's mountain stand, and for a brief moment, it worked. But only for a brief moment. Once Alexander broke through, the road opened, the treasury fell, the palaces burned, and the conquest moved east, beyond the old royal capitals, into a longer and harder war. Years later, far from Persia, Alexander would face another obstacle. Not a mountain pass, a river. Not Persian defenders on cliffs, an Indian king waiting with elephants on the far bank. His name was Porus, and at the Hydaspes, Alexander would again have to answer the same question that followed him across Asia. How do you attack an enemy who has chosen the ground before you arrive?